この動画は Kindle と連動しています。書籍には日本語訳や単語の解説もあります。動画とセットでどうぞ。
Number 1. The iPhone, the moment the world changed. A simple brown paper envelope. Steve Jobs' presentations always raised expectations. From this envelope, he pulled out a small square-shaped device. Yes, it was the first iPhone. It was introduced on January 9th, 2007 at the Macworld Expo. Before this, mobile phones were just portable phones. They were getting smaller, but they were still only used for making calls. Steve Jobs, the CEO of Apple, described the iPhone as a widescreen iPod with touch controls, a revolutionary mobile phone, and a breakthrough internet communications device. He announced that the iPhone would reinvent the phone. The first iPhone was indeed a new invention, as Jobs had promised. The 8-gigabyte model was priced at $599, about 80,000 yen. It only came in silver and did not have a front camera. Unfortunately, it was not released in Japan. Later, the iPhone 3G, the second generation, was released in Japan. According to an article in the evening edition of the Asahi Shimbun, Tokyo headquarters on that day, more than 1,500 people lined up for about a kilometer at the SoftBank Mobile Omotesando store in Shibuya, Tokyo, to buy it. Today, the iPhone has reached its 15th generation, and Steve Jobs has passed away. Now using iPhones or other smartphones every day has become normal. We are living in the future that Jobs envisioned. Number 2. The Diary of a Young Girl, Anne Frank. I want to go on living even after my death. Will I ever become a journalist or a writer? This is what Anne wrote in her diary. The home where the Franks hid in Amsterdam continues to attract a large number of visitors and is now known as the Anne Frank House. During the first half of July 1942, Anne and her family went into hiding. 4 other Jews eventually joined them. For 2 years, they lived in a secret apartment at 263 Prinsengracht Street. She wrote the diary in her hiding place every single day. That's why it is known as the Diary of a Young Girl. On August 4th, 1944, the German SS and police finally discovered the hiding place, and the Gestapo sent the family to Auschwitz. Auschwitz was a prison camp which the Nazis established as a killing center for efficient mass murder. Anne Frank died at the age of 15, and her sister Margot died at 19, in February or March 1945. This was shortly before British troops freed the other prisoners on April 15, 1945. Both died of typhus. Only Anne's father, Otto, survived the war. He was integral to getting his daughter's diary published. The Diary of Anne Frank is the first, and sometimes only, way many people learn about the history of the Holocaust. Anne Frank's writings also included short stories, fairy tales, and essays. Anne lives on in her diary still now. Number 3. The Great East Japan Earthquake, March 11, 2011. On March 11, 2011, at 2:46 p.m., a huge earthquake with a magnitude of 9.0 occurred off the Pacific coast of the Tohoku region in Japan. This earthquake was the largest in Japan's history, a country prone to earthquakes, and it led to many deaths and missing people. Most of the victims died from drowning in the tsunami. Waves as high as 40 meters swallowed towns, homes, and thousands of lives. People living near the sea had prepared for tsunamis and learned from past lessons. However, the waves that hit their homes were more than twice as high as expected and struck suddenly. Many people were affected at schools and workplaces during the weekdays. After the massive earthquake, it was hard for most people to think calmly and act. It shows how hard it is to stay calm in an emergency from the stories of people who had only a few moments to think about their homes and families before the tsunami hit. What can be done? The key is regular training and preparing for emergencies. Sadly, people tend to forget these incidents. More than 10 years after the Great East Japan earthquake, many people can only slightly remember the terrible event. They know it could happen again, but don't like to think it could happen to them. After the disaster, sales of high-rise apartments fell, and more people joined the anti-nuclear demonstrations and became aware of the energy they use. But what about now? Fewer people speak out about the dangers of high-rise buildings, and all-electric apartments have become normal. Living in earthquake-prone Japan, similar-sized earthquakes will certainly occur again. We should see this as our own responsibility and make sure we can protect ourselves if it happens again. Number 4. My Buddy, Lonely Planet. From the 1970s to the 1990s, there was a series of books called Lonely Planet. These books were like magical maps that could take readers on incredible journeys around the world. Each book was filled with stories, pictures, and helpful tips about different countries and cities. Imagine you want to go on an adventure to a faraway place like Thailand or Italy. You might feel a bit nervous because you don't know what to expect. That's where Lonely Planet comes in handy. You can pick up one of these books and discover everything you need to know about your destination. For example, let's say you're planning a trip to Japan. You can open up the book and learn about famous landmarks like the majestic Mount Fuji or the bustling streets of Tokyo. You'll also find useful information about where to stay, what to eat, and how to get around. But it isn't just for travelers. It's also for dreamers and adventurers who want to explore the world from the comfort of their own homes. You can relax with one of these books and imagine exciting cultures, beautiful places, and interesting histories. The best part about doing this is that it makes you experience the world while at home. Even if you're sitting in your room thousands of miles away, you can flip through these books and feel like you're right there, exploring the streets of Paris or trekking through the jungles of Costa Rica. So, whether you're planning a trip or simply daydreaming about far-off places, Lonely Planet is your ticket to adventure, discovery, and the magic of travel. Now you can enjoy Lonely Planet online. Number 5. Patagonia, a movement to protect the environment. Yvon Chouinard, an accomplished rock climber, began his career selling handmade mountain climbing gear. He later started a company called Patagonia that wanted to change the way people thought about clothing and the environment. Patagonia wasn't like other companies. They cared deeply about nature and wanted to make clothes that were good for the planet. One of the things Patagonia became famous for was their fleece jackets. These jackets were made from a special material called fleece, which was soft, warm, and perfect for outdoor adventures. But what made Patagonia's fleece jackets unique was the way they were made. You see, Patagonia didn't just want to make clothes that looked good. They wanted to make clothes that did good, too. That's why they used recycled materials to make their fleece jackets. Instead of using new resources like oil or plastic, Patagonia collected old bottles and turned them into soft, cozy fleece. But Patagonia didn't stop there. They also wanted to make sure their jackets were made in a way that was good for people and the planet. That's why they worked with factories that treated their workers fairly and used sustainable practices to make their clothes. When people bought a Patagonia fleece jacket, they weren't just buying a piece of clothing. They were joining a movement to protect the environment and support ethical business practices. As more people discovered the comfort and quality of these jackets, the company grew, spreading their message of sustainability and responsibility widely. So whether you're hiking in the mountains, camping in the wilderness, or just taking a jog in the park, a Patagonia fleece jacket is more than just a piece of clothing. It's a symbol of a company that cares about the planet and the people who call it home. Number 6. Yes, I speak English. English is a global language, and over 1 billion people worldwide use it as a communication tool. Among them, 80% are non-native speakers who speak English as their second language. This data shows that many people do not speak English like natives. Each country has its own pronunciation and accent, and there are certain sounds that people find difficult to pronounce. For example, in French, there is no H sound, so some people struggle with pronouncing words like hotel. In Italian, the TH sound does not exist, so people struggle with words like through. In Japan, as you may know, people cannot distinguish between R and L. In Japanese, there is only the rariruredo sound, making it difficult to differentiate between these sounds in listening and speaking. It is often said that Japanese people cannot pronounce R, but in reality, more people cannot pronounce L correctly. The L sound involves touching the back of the upper teeth with the tongue, which is quite different from any sounds in Japanese. To overcome this, the approach is the same for learners from any country. Practice pronouncing the sound many times. Remember when you were learning to ride a bicycle as a child? You repeated it many times, fell often, and eventually you could ride. It's a similar pattern when learning English. Also, it helps to be a little bold. While being humble is valued in Japan, it is not a good thing when speaking English. For example, Spanish, French, and Indian people, despite speaking English as their second language, confidently say, "I speak English." Among them are fluent speakers and those who are not, and of course, there are various accents. Continuing to learn is essential, but how you do so is also important. Number 7. Sugar high. When you are tired, having something sweet might seem like the perfect fix. Many people eat sweets every day without much thought. If you feel energized after eating sugary treats, it's not just your imagination. Sugar quickly raises your blood sugar levels, which can make you feel better and more energized. This is known as a sugar high. However, what goes up must come down. After the sugar high, your blood sugar levels drop rapidly. This drop can make you feel depressed or tired. Feeling sleepy after lunch can also be due to this sudden drop in blood sugar. Changes in blood sugar levels can also affect your mood. If you're feeling grumpy and eat something sweet to raise your blood sugar, a lot of insulin is released, and soon your blood sugar levels crash. This drop can upset your mood and make you more grumpy. Feeling upset or in a bad mood when you are hungry is a common experience. More exactly, it's not just because you're hungry, but also because your blood sugar levels have dropped quickly. Sugar can also be addictive. Some studies even suggest it's more addictive than certain drugs. Sugar directly affects the brain's systems, which makes you feel happy after eating sweets. However, this can make you want more, making it hard to stop. Have you ever found yourself needing sweets after meals or as snacks and feel uneasy without them? You might be developing a dependence on sugar. People with steady blood sugar who don't rely on sugar usually don't crave sweets when they're upset. If you want sweets when you're upset, make excuses to eat candy, or reach for something sweet when you feel lonely, you might be showing signs of addiction. What are your favorite foods? It's a good idea to think about and track what you eat every day for the sake of your health. Number 8. Convenience stores. When I was in elementary school, a 7-Eleven opened near my house. It was located alongside a national highway and was even open on New Year's Day, so I remember going shopping there during the holidays when I was bored. The store was very convenient when I was coming back from club activities or the pool and felt a little hungry. When I was in high school, the first Lawson store opened in our town. It was slightly different from 7-Eleven in its product lines, which I found exciting. In 1974, the first 7-Eleven opened in Toyosu, Tokyo. At that time, it was managed by the parent company Ito-Yokado. The following year, Daiei Lawson, now Lawson, opened, and Seiyu Store, now Seiyu, started Family Mart based on their unique know-how. Since then, in Japan, convenience stores have developed their own models, enhancing product development, logistics, information systems, and financial and service functions. The convenience store phenomenon started in the United States, but this Japanese model was provided by 7-Eleven Japan to the struggling Southland Corporation in America, helping its recovery. Now in Japan, there is a convenience store on almost every block, not just for shopping, but also for picking up packages, paying utility bills, and even getting coffee. Modern convenience stores offer so many services that it feels like they have everything. Many people visit a convenience store every day. For tourists from abroad, Japanese convenience stores are a must-visit spot and have become a part of Japanese culture, just like anime. However, while convenience stores are helpful, we must think about the hard work of the people who work there. Being open 24 hours and able to do almost anything is not common globally. In Europe, many countries close their supermarkets on weekends. It's slightly inconvenient, but weekends are precious times to spend with family and friends. What do you think about convenience and inconvenience? Number 9. The Hiroshima Peace Memorial. The Hiroshima Peace Memorial, commonly known as the Atomic Bomb Dome, is now a World Heritage Site visited by many people from Japan and around the world. Before the atomic bomb was dropped, it was known as the Hiroshima Prefectural Industrial Promotion Hall, a building where local products were displayed and exhibitions were held. Designed by the Czech architect Jan Letzel, it was built in a style called Secession, and at the time, it was considered a very modern building. After it was finished in 1915, it hosted product displays, art shows, and fairs, becoming a busy place. However, as World War II went on and bombings became frequent, it stopped being used as an exhibition hall. On August 6, 1945, at 8:15 a.m., the first atomic bomb in human history was dropped on Hiroshima. It is said to have exploded 580 meters above the dome. The blast and subsequent heat from the bomb instantly destroyed buildings and turned Hiroshima into a sea of fire. You might have seen or heard about the terrible effects at the time. Many lives were painfully lost. After the war, survivors debated whether to keep the atomic bomb dome as a reminder of the tragic day or to take it down. However, Hiroko Kajiyama, who was exposed to radiation as a baby and died of leukemia 15 years later in 1960, influenced people with her words in her diary. Will this pitiful industrial promotion hall, atomic bomb dome, forever remind the world about the dreadful atomic bomb? Her words sparked the Preserve the Atomic Bomb Dome donation and signature campaign, which eventually influenced the Hiroshima City Council. In 1966, 20 years after the war ended, the council decided to preserve the dome, and in 1996, it was registered as a World Heritage Site. As time passes and those who experienced the atomic bomb firsthand are no longer with us, Hiroko's words continue to remind us of the horrors of the atomic bomb and the importance of peace. Number 10. It was called Japan as a Number 1. Once upon a time, in the 1980s, Japan was like a shining star in the sky. It was called Japan as a Number 1 because it was doing so well, especially economically. Everyone around the world looked at Japan with wide eyes, amazed. Japan made the best TVs, cars, and video games. People in Japan worked very hard, and it seemed like they could make anything better and faster than anyone else. During this time, Japan's cities glowed with bright lights, and its factories buzzed with energy. The streets were filled with new cars, and shops were full of cool gadgets. People from other countries came to see how Japan was doing it. It was a happy and proud time for Japan. But like all stories, this one also changed with time. Now Japan faces different challenges. The world has changed a lot since the 1980s. Other countries have started making their own cool gadgets and cars, and sometimes they do it cheaper than Japan can. One major problem Japan faces now is that there are fewer young people. Many people in Japan are getting older, and there are not as many children being born. This means that there are fewer people to work in the factories and come up with new ideas. It also means there are more old people who need care and help, which can be very expensive. Japan is also facing competition from all over the world. Countries like China and India make lots of electronics and cars too. And they have lots of young people who are eager to work and invent new things. Even though Japan is facing these challenges, it is still a wonderful place with smart and hardworking people. Japan is working on solving its problems by making robots to help care for older people and finding new ways to make energy without polluting the earth. The story of Japan shows us that every country has its glorious moments and its tough times. But with hard work and smart ideas, challenges can be faced and new chapters of success can be written. Number 11. The national team in football. In October 1993, in Doha, Qatar, it was the final minute of the match. An Iraqi player's headed shot slowly floated towards the goal as if in slow motion. We all watched in shock as the ball hit the net. The match had ended in a 2-2 draw. The Japanese players couldn't stand up, devastated by the missed chance to qualify for their first-ever World Cup. We were watching this game in real time, a game which later became known as the Tragedy of Doha. In 1993, Japan's first professional football league, the J-League, started, causing a huge football boom. Kazuyoshi Miura, called Kazu, was a professional football player in Brazil. He came back to Japan and joined Yomiuri Verdy, making the excitement for football even stronger. He was part of the national team trying to reach the World Cup, and many Japanese focused on Japan's football team at that time. 4 years after the tragedy in Doha, before the World Cup in France, the Japan national team finally achieved their long-held goal and got their ticket. However, Kazuyoshi Miura did not make the team for the France World Cup and missed his chance to participate. 4 years is sadly not a short time for a football player. Since then, Japan has become a regular at the World Cup, and many Japanese players have thrived in both domestic and international football leagues. Since 2018, Hajime Moriyasu has been the coach of the Japan national team. He was one of the players involved in the tragedy in Doha. He had almost opened the door to the world stage and then saw his dream vanish before his eyes. That day, when the chance to qualify was lost, it seemed like everything else was too. Now he is leading the national team. Qualifying for the World Cup is expected, but they are also in a tough position with higher expectations for better results. Even though Moriyasu did not play in the World Cup, the dreams from that time still live on in the Japan national team. Moriyasu's goal to make Japan stronger and succeed globally still inspires people today. Number 12. The Glass Ceiling. During the 2016 U.S. presidential election, Hillary Clinton spoke after her defeat, saying, "The highest and hardest glass ceiling has not yet been broken, but someday someone will achieve it sooner than we think." The glass ceiling means barriers that stop women and minorities from advancing, even if they have the right qualifications and achievements. Even with great accomplishments, promotions can stop at a certain point, and progress no longer continues. Gender equality is one part of this, but it also includes race, sexual orientation, and country of origin. For example, in terms of gender equality, the current Japanese cabinet includes only 2 women out of 20 ministers, which is the lowest percentage among the G7 countries. In most companies, the low number of female managers and the difficulties working mothers face in showing their skills are big problems. This situation is often called a glass ceiling. It happens because of unconscious gender discrimination and strong biases. For example, women's jobs often involve roles like administrative assistants, where they do tasks like making tea and copying. After coming back from maternity leave, many women are put on mommy tracks, which include routine tasks suited for mothers. If they leave their jobs, returning to a full-time position often becomes impossible. The glass ceiling is described as invisible but real, and it has a complex meaning. Some of these barriers are created on purpose by existing systems. On the other hand, these roles are reinforced by traditional gender roles and a male-dominated mindset. Many people might not realize that common beliefs like men work, women stay at home, men and women have natural differences in abilities, or women should be reserved, have led to continued inequality. The game peekaboo is loved by babies. Until about 1 year old, a baby cannot tell the difference between something being hidden and something being gone. They think that what is hidden has disappeared. However, as they grow, they realize that just because something is not visible, this doesn't mean it isn't there. Older babies can also find joy in the surprise of peekaboo. Similarly, the glass ceiling is always there, even if hidden. When you try to move forward, the glass ceiling shows itself unexpectedly. Can we ever break through this immovable glass ceiling and live in a truly equal world? This is a question we continue to face.